India's biggest ever exercise is all set to be conducted in 2025. A notification extending the tenure of Census Commissioner up to August 2026 was released by the centre. As per what sources have told NewsX, the census data is all set to be released by 2026 and delimitation is likely to be conducted in 2028. But more importantly, we've been told that there will be no separate caste census, as government sources feel it could divide the country. This sets the stage for the biggest exercise of the decade, which was to be conducted in 2021 but could not be done due to COVID-19. Joining us live at this point is Savio Rodriguez, BJP leader. We also have Dr. Pooja Tripathi, Congress spokesperson, live with us. Professor Madhav Narapat, editorial director of the Sunday Guardian, also joins us live. Savio, let me begin with you first. Finally, it seems that the census is all set to be conducted. What are likely to be the modalities of it? Also, is it now confirmed that there is going to be no caste-based census as part of the exercise?
Well, I think it's about time, Uday, that the country had a census done so that we get an indication of the people, the various backgrounds that they come from, the various age groups that they come from, what are their aspirations that are there. I think that's the necessity of what the government is trying to address. And I think that's something that is much needed, and it's about time that the government brought it. And I'm glad that they're bringing in a census, which is happening next year. And I think the details of it will be made known by 2026. So the country will know what is the census, what are the kind of population demographics that we have. And I'm not aware currently whether there is a caste emphasis as far as the census is concerned. But the most important aspect of it is an ability to understand the demographics that this country is about. And it was to be done in 2021. And I think it got postponed primarily because of COVID at that point of time. Now, however, it's getting done next year. I think it's a good start.
Yes, Pooja Tripathi, come in here. It's a good start. It's about time the census has happened and the government is ready to conduct it, says Savio. But interestingly, there will be most likely, at least that's what our sources are telling us, there will be no caste-based census. The government feels this will divide the country and there will be no caste-based questions per se asked. How do you view this decision? And how do you view the exercise which will begin next year?
Uday, it's a long way to demand, to conduct caste census and the extension of Census Commissioner that has been notified by the government. Everyone welcomes that, but we demand an all-party meeting before government takes a call on census, because as per your reports and as per everywhere, government is not keen on going with caste census, which makes the whole point of representation of communities, which makes the whole point of getting the exact number of communities null and void. Also, second is the delimitation of constituencies, the Lok Sabha and the Assembly constituencies, that the Article 82 of Constitution talks about post the 2026 publication of census results. How will they reflect the changing demographic of the country? Also, as the southern states have been consistently raising this question of they are being underrepresented, are they being punished for being the pioneers in the family planning? This needs to be addressed too. So there needs to be these 3 points needs to be addressed. But Uday, I want to bring out some few points when it comes to the caste-based census. In last 15 days, we saw the Sukanya Shanta judgment, the landmark Supreme Court ruling, where caste-based discrimination in prisons was practiced for the vocation, and Supreme Court termed it unconstitutional. Yesterday, we saw in Jhansi, a man being paraded naked, derobed, shaved off for refusing to work in an upper caste man's field without any wages. And then there is the NCRB reports which says that UP, MP and Rajasthan are the top most states when it comes to the atrocities against the marginalized communities. So the pervasive nature of these caste-based atrocities is from everything, from the brutal assault to the state being the perpetrator, is that there is an underlying malaise that pretends the society. And we need to know, acknowledging is the first step, and that's why we are demanding the caste census. Caste census is not just about the numbers, not just about finding the numbers of SC, ST, OBCs and the marginalized community. It's about acknowledging the problem and then making tailored effects, then making the then making efforts to bridge those gaps, then making efforts to bridge their underrepresentation, their misrepresentation be it in education, be it in employment. So we are demanding caste-based census because it's a stepping stone for an inclusive and for an equitable representative society. And that's why without the fact of caste-based census, and not us, it's the JDU as an alliance partner, it's TDB, is the Chirag Paswan-led LJP, is the yesterday after Vijay launched a political outfit, everyone has been raising the demand for the caste-based census. So government should come out and tell us that are they planning to go ahead with the caste-based census or not? Otherwise, this whole exercise, which we have waited for around 13 years to 2021 was the last. COVID happened, many elections happened. No, the census was not notified. So now when you are taking it into 2025-26, government needs to tell people, will it include the caste-based census? Because that's the stepping stone for correcting the representation gap. That's the stepping stone for correcting the policy misrepresentation, tailoring and having targeted policy measures to target those communities that are underrepresented. Because as I said, I just pointed out 3 instances in the past. So caste-based discrimination is prevalent. Acknowledge it and take reforms to, bridge those gaps is what we have been demanding, and not us. Every political outfit has been demanding. Let's see how government takes that up.
Okay, let me in fact quickly also go back then to Savio. Savio, your response to Pooja Tripathi demand of an all-party meeting before conducting of the exercise. They also demand a caste-based census. They're upset with your decision that there will be no caste-based aspect of this census. Your response? What is the logic in that decision?
Well, I thoroughly appreciate the fact that our panelist Pooja Tripathi always makes very pertinent points. However, what I fail to understand, and I say it with all humility, is that what has her political party over a period of time done with regards to the very caste census or the caste so-called atrocities that they are talking about right now. Some of them are genuine, and that is happening in various different aspects of life. It's not only the lower caste, it's also the upper caste that faces its own discrimination. The point I'm trying to understand, and I'm trying to enlighten a lot of people in political parties, is where does division of a citizen happen on the basis of caste? And why should it be in that manner? Are we not all citizens of the same country? Why are we then allowing for us to permeate this thought process that we are all divided and different based on our caste, when we should actually be doing work together as citizens of this country? And we have, as a political party, over a period of time, if you look at the work done by the Narendra Modi government, we have not discriminated on the basis of caste. In fact, we have gone ahead looking at people based on the fact that they are citizens. So whether you belong to an upper caste, or whether you belong to the not upper caste, or you belong to a particular religion, how does that even matter when you are actually a citizen of this country? The sad part, what Congress is doing at this point of time, in particular Rahul Gandhi, is he's not learning from the lessons of his father and his grandmother that understood that if you start dividing the country on the basis of caste and start focusing and permeating the thought of casteism in people at a political level, you will start dividing the country further and create far more chaos and anarchy. And that is the reason why they never did it in the first place. So the important aspect for us is, what are our demographics? Who are our people? What is the economic strata of society that they come from? Not what is the caste strata of society that they come from. What is the economic strata of society? Because that's where the real problem lies. It is not whether a Brahmin is an upper caste, but economically he might not be very well to do as compared to, say, somebody from what you all term as lower caste. The point is that, are we going to continue to take this country backward, or rather look at moving this country forward, where every single one of us is given the privileges of being a citizen based on merit, based on the fact that they are all under the same constitution of India, rather than divided on caste, which we have created over a period of time.
Okay, let me take that across to Professor Madhav Nalapat as well before Pooja responds as well. Professor Nalapat, how do you see this exercise, which of course finally now is being conducted, likely to begin from next year? And also, do you welcome the fact that it will not be an entirely caste-based census, as the opposition was demanding?
Well, Uday, first of all, I'd like to talk about the question of a census. I think a census is a very good idea. There's no question about it. And one important thing that we all have to bear in mind is that there's a huge degree of mobility between states. Now, for example, you may belong to one state and work in another state. And now you're seeing in the southern states, for example, and in the western states, a large number of people are coming from the north and east and settling down there. And as Savio says, we are all Indians. So they're all welcome. So I personally, Pooja made a point that some states should not be penalized for having undertaken a much better family planning routine. And I think, frankly, that is true. So if when we are dividing the seats, and we are basically, in my view, you could increase the seats, but proportionally. So the same proportions are maintained and no state feels discriminated against. Otherwise, what is likely to happen, if you have it on a pure numerical basis, then you're going to have about four or so states absolutely dominating the politics of the country. And whether the other states will welcome that, whether that's even good for the country, I'm not very sure. So I think that there should definitely be an increase in the number of seats so that you have less people per constituency, but that increase has got to be proportional. A state with a much higher population will obviously have seats that have got a lot bigger populations than states which have got a smaller population, but the proportion should be the same. Secondly, regarding caste, after all, the ancient scriptures teach us that Janmane Shudra Karmane Bahuda, that caste is acquired through activity and it doesn't come from birth. We seem to have forgotten that, and I think for the time we forgot that, I don't know how many centuries ago, I think society has not done particularly well. So emphasizing the role of caste, census, etc., engraving in your mind that you belong to this particular caste and that's it. Frankly, everybody knows if you're in a village, for example, where caste practices take place, and that's very unfortunate, and any atrocity needs to be condemned and dealt with strongly. But the reality is that these facts are well known. Everybody knows where you come from if you're in a village or a panchayat. There's no need for a census data to go through that, to know that. So in my personal view, caste has been a somewhat unpleasant factor in a lot of society in India. And I think further engraving it deeper and deeper into a psyche of the people, into a system of governance, in my view, I am not sure that that's advisable. Uday.
Yes. Okay. Pooja Tripathi, yes, you wanted to come back in. Go ahead.
Should I speak for that?
Please.
Yeah. Saying that we should not encourage casteism is like an ostrich when it senses danger, puts his head in the sand and thinks that danger would go away. I just mentioned the 3 states, and there has been instances when a man has been urinated upon by an upper caste people. He knows that he can urinate upon the head of a lower caste people. When a woman's dead body is not allowed to go through the main road because she comes from a lower caste, this caste discrimination, this caste-based violence is present in societies. Present in its the most ugliest form. Saying that we don't want the numbers, it will lead to casteism. I think it's a very, very, very privileged approach.
Uday, I'm sorry, I don't see that correlation, frankly, and I stand with Pooja Tripathi in saying that this kind of persecution on the basis of so-called caste should be sternly dealt with. But I don't see the correlation between, frankly, dealing with the issue and explicitly deepening this entire focus on caste in the census. I just don't see the correlation. That's all.
Correlation, Professor Nalpat, if I can say, if I can interrupt you, is to find their numbers, is to find their representation. We are saying that caste census is not just about numbers. Say ABC community is grossly underrepresented in education and employment. What will government do? Government will come out with scholarships, government will come out with vocational training, apprenticeship, internships and things like that, tailored to that community to bridge the gap. That that they have the gap that has been imposed upon them because they took birth in a community, and that's where we demand caste-based census. Saying that this will deepen casteism, as I think it's a very privileged and a very white-collared approach to look at it.
But that's already happening.
So we have, when we
That's
talk
already
about,
happening, Pooja. Where is the division?
When you say are the vocational training, are the skill development, are the educational
Yes,
schemes
they've been
tailored?
divided based
Yeah,
on.
please tell me other than
Pooja Tripathi, unfortunately, a lot of states in India, elections are fought on caste. Isn't this something the Congress party wants to eradicate? Shouldn't elections be fought on real issues rather than just caste? Earlier, caste was asked for candidates. This is also something that certain parties have done away with. Shouldn't we remove caste-based politics from India? Shouldn't we vote on real issues now in 21st century India, Pooja?
Exactly. So when Yogi ji goes into Maharashtra and Jharkhand says batenge to katenge aur saath rahenge to aage badhenge, this is what he's asking for real issues. We are asking votes on the issues of unemployment, the massive inflation that's raging across the country. Take for instance Maharashtra, the 17 major projects that took out from Maharashtra to Gujarat. I'll just mention Maharashtra. Say for Jharkhand, we are asking votes and we are not asking on batenge to katenge. This is where we want caste census because we want the numbers, we want the policies to be tailored to them. You have to go away from this batenge katenge politics.
Savio.
To the politics of progress.
So let me explain to
politics
Pooja,
of
maybe,
development.
let me explain to Pooja if you allow me. Pooja, batenge to katenge primarily means exactly what I am saying. The idea of unity in India is not about religion and caste. It's about realizing the simple truth that we are all citizens, which is why I would advise you. There is a book coming out by us in another 2 months on the work that is being done by the government over the last 10 years, the last decade, and you can see for yourself the different initiatives taken across communities, irrespective of their caste or their creed. Understand one thing, Pooja, and I know you won't believe it, but dividing this country on caste, you are talking about the atrocities to the lower caste. I can give you examples of atrocities to the Brahmins.
No, I
Will you accept it? So the
movie-
division is happening.
You-
The division is happening because of caste.
No,
Because
let
we
me
are
tell you,
allowing
I'm
it
talking about
to
the higher
permeate.
people. When a Mohit Pandey dies in a police thana due to police brutality, he is an upper caste people who is a victim of a institutional murder, who was murdered, who was taken into police thana because of some 600 rupees altercation with his employer, and he was found murdered.
What happened to the Palgar
that's what I'm
Sadhus?
saying.
What
When
happened
you
to the
talk
Palgar
about
Sadhus when the
unity,
Congress was in
it's
government?
unity,
What happened
Savio.
to the Palgar Sadhus? Were they not upper caste Hindus?
For the Hindus to
What happened to the Palgar Sadhus?
process.
What happened to the Palgar Sadhus, Pooja?
We are asking you
What
now.
happened to the Palgar Sadhus?
How did
So
it-
atrocities happened across.
Grim reality
Atrocities
is that
happen across. When you
person
label it as caste,
on
when
below
you
the
label it as caste,
Sarkar,
you further divide society. We have to rise above it, Pooja.
58%
We have to rise above
then
it.
you have to form policies on it, saying that government has been doing. I have just quoted out the NCRB figures, which shows massive increase in the caste-based violence. I have just showed out.
Professor Nalapat, come in here. Professor Nalapat, come in here. How do we rise above this caste-based debate? And also, Professor Nalapat, do you believe this census will set the ball rolling for eventual delimitation as well?
Look, I think a census is a good idea. We have to know how many people we are as Indians. I think, in different states, keeping in mind the fact that a large number of people, for example, from Ms. Tripathi state, who have settled in Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Andhra, and in parts of Kerala, and vice versa. So that's the first point. And the second point that needs to be made is that there needs to be a certain equity. And in that equity, it is very important not to penalize states that have done very well in terms of family planning, but when you increase the seats proportionally to what they have now, so that the states that have done a better job will get seats which have got less people than states which have not done such a good job in population control, and each seat will have a larger number of constituents. And as far as caste is concerned, quite frankly, I mean, Ms. Tripathi seems to believe that unless you check the census, we don't know the caste of a person. I wish that were true. I really and truly wish that were true, but it's not true. Unfortunately, in some parts of the country, many parts of the country, it is obvious that the caste differentiation exists. And may I point out, from the 1970s onwards, 1960s onwards, you have a situation where the underprivileged castes have risen up politically, and they have, and you have got chief ministers in UP, for example, from the
Yes.
backward communities, chief ministers from the Dalit communities, and in fact, we finally have a prime minister who was born in a backward community. So I simply want to say that we don't need to consult a census. Unfortunately, I wish we did, but that would have been a great step forward.
Okay.
But we have to reach a situation by which, frankly, caste ceases to be a factor. And as has been said by Savio about all these government schemes, they are irrespective of
Yes.
caste, they are irrespective of state, irrespective of language. They are based on nationality. And I think that is important.
Absolutely.
Finding
Let me quickly get in.
as a nationality.
Yes, let me quickly get in Sanket Yenagi. I believe he's also joined the broadcast now. He's a political analyst. Sanket Yenagi, welcome. And your quick comment on this census and the modalities of it. What do you believe they're going to be? And also, how do you react to the political debate that's erupted over the fact that it's likely to omit caste?
So in my opinion, more than a political debate, one need to understand the advantages and disadvantages of it. So let me go to that aspect of the matter first, and now let us think about and decide and also debate on the advantages. The first disadvantage would be it is addressing inequalities in the society. It is helping to diagnose the inequality and addressing that, number one. Number two, identifying disadvantaged households. A caste census can help to identify disadvantaged households and implement anti-poverty programs. It is helping the government, number two. Number three, providing data for policy making. Caste census can provide statistical justifications for manifesting caste-based affirmative action programs or the welfare schemes which are necessary for the government, any government for that matter. And number four would be streamlining the reservation. A caste census can help streamline the caste-based reservation system, and this is very much clear data, scientific data based on which everyone can appropriately think and scientifically it can be implemented too. And number five would be revealing privileged sections of the society. So there are some privileged sections who are now getting the privilege, and there are some sections which are in fact deserving the privilege, which have not been given the privilege under the law. That would be identified with the scientific data, and it should be necessary in a process to understand which is the privileged section, and it is necessary to reveal as well. And then number six would be providing data for the judicial support. Several occasions, the Indian courts have often requested the governments to provide the statistical information or the data in order to understand the exact reservation who is entitled to and who is not entitled to for the benefit which is available only for the reservation. These are the advantages of it. Equally, it has got certain disadvantages too. Number one, it may not align with the casteless society. When we are talking about development, this, that, everything in the casteless society, it may not align with that philosophy. And number two would be state authority. The state may lack authority to conduct the caste census sometimes, because they are dividing, there is a subcategory and they are bifurcating it, and that in a way the state may say that it is affecting its interest to have the casteless society, which is affecting the growth or the development of a country as a whole. That could be the best argument of a state, which is avoiding in a particular scenario like this. And number three would be reliability of the methodology which the caste census be conducted. There are various ways of the methodologies which the government may adopt or may not adopt or may insist upon. There is always an issue of trustworthiness of that. The reason being, sometimes when the government is opposing the caste census, more particularly in this scenario, the adoptability of a particular procedure or the methodology of the government would lead to so many suspicions, because someone wants the reservation, someone do not want the census at all. So that being the case, there is always a trust issue. And number four would be complexity of the caste systems. The caste system in India itself is very complex. And in case we want to have the scientific survey or the census of the caste-based census more so, it is quite complex, it is not so easy. But looking at all these things, what I feel that under the constitution there is a reservation provided. And there is a reservation which needs to be looked into time and again based on the development of the society or the marginal section of the society. So when we are looking for the reservation or revisitation of the reservation, there needs to be a census.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.